Welcome back to Afternoon Garage. So today we're going to be changing the oil on this 2012 Fisker Karma. If you drive an electric car like I do, you'll take it back and forth to work 5 or 6 miles, and then maybe at the end of the week you're due for a charge, pull it in the driveway, hook up your 220 charger, and you're good to go the next week. Built into the software of this car, what they have is they have a routine which actually starts the engine in the front and then will let the engine come up to operating temperature and then it shuts back off again. It's very similar to how your air conditioning system comes on when you put on the defrost on your dash. Kind of gets all the fluids moving and that kind of thing. Well, this does something very similar. So if you drive an electric car like this one here, maybe every 5th or 6th drive cycle, you'll turn it on and the gasoline engine comes on. Well, that's perfectly normal. Just trying to protect and lubricate the engine. That's great that it turns the engine on every once in a while and lets it run. What happens is the engine never really fully reaches operating temperature. And also with that fuel down in the crankcase, kind of makes a bad situation. So you know when this is going on, you can pull your oil cap and give it a sniff, or maybe your dipstick, and see if it's got fuel contamination. And typically, if you don't drive these things under gasoline power, it's going to start to smell like fuel after a while. Yeah, a little bit of smell of fuel. I'm going to change it. So let's talk a few minutes about what we're going to use to do this oil change. So I have this filter here. This is kind of what it calls for. It's an AC Delco filter. I kind of like to use what the original equipment would be. It actually has a GM part number stamped right on the box. It's good enough for me since this is a Saturn engine. So here's a replacement cartridge. It goes in a little housing behind the engine there, and you take it off and you unscrew the cap and get your hands all oily and nasty and snap this thing in there and plug it in and you're on your way. There's another option here. You can get this filter here. Now this one here is just about $3 or $4 more, but look at that. Has a brand new replacement cap. Actually has the O-ring, new O-ring installed within the cap. Hey, you can just pull the old one out and stick this in. But if you replace the cap with a brand new cap, you're just about guaranteed you're not going to get any oil leaks. Another thing we're going to use here is this. This is a 12 millimeter magnetized drain plug. So this is really good if you have some metal floating around the engine somewhere inside of the crankcase. This is probably going to capture that. It's got a real strong magnet on it. So basically you take the old one out, the drain plug out, and replace this. It has an O-ring inside of there, so it'll seal. And the only difference between this and the stock one is that this is a 13 millimeter socket, whereas that one's 15. We're also going to try Amazon's full synthetic 5W30 motor oil. I've heard lots of good things about this. I'm not quite sure what kind of refinery it's made in, but I'm sure, knowing Amazon, they probably have some really good stuff. Normally I would use Valvoline full synthetic. It's just a few dollars more, but I figured I'd try the Amazon here, see how it works. So let's get to changing that oil. Don't really need to take that off. We don't really need to take the strut tower brace off at all. We'll just take this off right here, and this should give us plenty of access to get down where the filter is behind the engine. So deep behind the engine, there it is right there. That's a 32 millimeter or 1.25 inch. So get yourself a low profile socket on that with a U-joint. Should come right off. Well, that was a pretty easy oil change. Gave you a couple options there for a filter, and that plug's a good thing too with that magnet on the end of it. So the thing is what you want to do now is you want to get the car out, put it in sport mode so that this engine comes on all the time while you're driving, and just let it heat up, let it run a nice drive cycle, let it come up to temperature. Shouldn't take very long, but get that generator working and get all your fluids flowing before you go back down to electric only mode where the internal combustion engine won't get used at all. I'm going to work on many different cars in the future, so if you like this kind of content, please subscribe. If you know anybody else who would like this content, just let them know.